Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I would like to go over the XenoThreat post-mortem, breaking down CIG's thoughts on the recent event. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. I cannot make these videos without you guys. In particular to my latest patron, Skiroff, thank you so much for the support. So with the XenoThreat event now over, CIG decided to address how they felt it went, similar to what they do with each patch, talking about what went well, what didn't, and what they have learnt for the future. Now, to kick it off with, we hear from Tony Zurovic. He mentioned that they actually created a strike team dedicated to making the combat feel as good as possible, which allowed for quick iteration. He felt that the general presence of the FPS AI characters in the Starfarer Rex made going through the Rex sites a little bit more interesting for the player and added a bit more of a varied style of gameplay, although they did have their issues. He also said he thought the decision to delay the event from the end of last year to this year was the right choice, with the difference being night and day when it comes to stability, performance, and quality of life. So what he felt didn't go so well was, one thing, the event required one person with a clear vision and knowledge of all aspects to be on hand to answer questions and address feedback. It requires a lot of folks to juggle responsibilities, which can lead to other responsibilities sliding, and if these events are required several times a year, then they cannot be absorbed by the existing teams, as their other responsibilities can suffer. The dialogue requirements for the event were a big undertaking, and much of it didn't actually trigger when it needed to, so in the future they will be more considerate about expectations on reviewing dialogue. Plus, more time prototyping would have been very beneficial, particularly for the Starfarer derelicts, as apparently the feature requirements changed in the middle of development and they ended up shipping the event with one less Starfarer derelict than they'd originally planned to, due to zero-G issues. So he says more prototyping would have enabled them to better understand what balance was required to get the combat working as intended. Also, he thinks it would have been better to help make players aware of how long Phase 3 lasted, as it was a bit of a surprise with how abrupt it ended. So better information to manage expectations should have improved this. Obviously, with performance being a huge limiting factor, they couldn't deliver sufficient numbers of enemies to create the level of challenge that they wanted, and as a result, the Idris was too easy to kill, and when it happened, it derailed Phase 3 significantly. So rapid mission finishing combined with long cooldowns meant that players struggled to find an active mission. And I completely agree with this. It felt like Phase 3 was a little confusing, and it was a big struggle just finding a server where it was active, or it didn't just end the minute that you joined. So due to time constraints, there was not enough time to support players choosing to fight alongside the XenoThreat, which resulted in some strong opinions either side, and so CIG are thinking about ways that they can support both playstyles, of which Tony Zurovic actually spoke about for the upcoming Ninetales event, which is, I think it's the next event we're going to get, we don't know when, but this will offer the option to help the Ninetales with their lockdown. Now, other issues included a poor client framerate during both combat phases, plus numerous reports of mission-critical assets loading slowly, including Rexites, supply ships, XenoThreat fighters, and FPS AI, which would often load in after the players start clearing the cargo, and that happened to me, and I ended up shooting a friendly, which I was very sorry about. Now, he also felt that during Phase 2 and 3, there wasn't enough content for non-combat players, and I personally do agree with this. It would be great for future events to have a lot more playstyles involved, continuously required throughout the whole event. But I do think the addition of needing cargo to resupply the Javelin in the XenoThreat event was a great idea, to just get those haulers involved as well. Tony Zurovic also felt that the hostility detection and crime state determination were too simplistic, which resulted in frequent friendly fire and those players getting crime stats and being dumped in prison. Now, this was probably one of the biggest issues in my opinion, so I'm very happy to hear that it is highlighted for them as an issue and they are looking to work on it. He also thinks it's very limited to how we can identify friend and foe, with no real way of telling who is on the mission, who is aggressive or hostile to others, and often who is in the party, as the party markers were not reliable. Again, couldn't agree more, it's just not as granular as it should be. Now, he said that the AI XenoThreat fighters presented no real sense of danger and were noticeably not attacking the more threatening ships, all the while ignoring incoming damage. EVA is still an issue, especially when entering or exiting a ship with sloppy and imprecise motions in flight, which again I completely agree with this. It's very difficult EVAing in and out of ships at the moment. You go all over the place, you get thrown around. I do expect the conversion to EVA to use the IFCS will hopefully help with a lot of how EVA feels, but I think it's more to do with the physics transitioning of being in 0G to the actual ship gravity that is the issue there. So improvements for the future. Now, Tony says that with all of these issues called out above, they are actively discussing and planning to address these for the future events, and over the coming weeks, they'll look at each piece of feedback in turn and work out how best to address it, which teams will work on them, and where they fit into the schedule. Issues with performance, AI, PvP design, and the lore system are at the forefront of their minds to ensure that these events are as good as they can be. Now, this is why I'm all for these events. It highlights so many major parts of Star Citizen and allows CIG to work on this even while it is still heavily in development, which means when the game is officially released, it won't take an age to be balanced. So for the AI team, what they felt went well. They said that the event was a great opportunity to have a company-wide goal across multiple teams, bringing several departments together. These types of events rely on a lot of other teams, for example the PU mission team, who were hugely responsive and reactive, and he says they constantly had a key member to contact about the mission flow, which helped to understand the goals, and the team felt it was a fantastic collaboration. Now, this event also provided the opportunity to utilize both new features and make improvements to existing ones. For example, the initial pass on capital ship combat, exposing the new assignment for requesting docking, and improve the current master graph flow for pilot combat. So what didn't go so well was the intention was not to overload the AI team with requests and make smart decisions in starting development on capital ship combat, but unfortunately the amount of work required to iterate on making it fun meant addressing edge cases was not fully considered, and it affected the workload of the team. Also, during the event, they found bugs that they assumed were caused by AI code or performance, but turned out to be a combination of other things that could have been addressed quicker if brought to their attention. So trying to improve performance at the same time as bug fixing made the final part of development a bit hectic. So moving on to the vehicle experience team, what they felt went well was work was focused on balancing the flight of the capital ships with the weapons that they use, but also the weapons that would be used against them from ships like the Eclipse or the Retaliator. They tuned down the flight balance of the capital ships to allow the AI to position the ships correctly to attack and defend, which means that when players officially get these capital ships in our hands, they will feel slightly different. Now, the most impactful changes they made were to the ship weapons, speeds, and strength. The event required stronger weapons and the inclusion of the railgun, and generally the stronger the weapon, the slower the speed of the projectile, apart from the railgun, which they actually used to push the limits of speed in Star Citizen. They really want the railgun to be feared, they say. And I personally loved watching the railgun charge up first and then after firing almost immediately strike the javelin. It was amazing to watch, and I think it will be quite a feared weapon. So what didn't go so well for the vehicle experience team? They say the difficulty was getting consistent, repeatable results to evaluate the balance of everything due to the performance of the game. It got easier as the development went on and performance increased though. The performance problems they experienced during the development did highlight some specific issues with weapons and shields that they were able to drastically improve under lower performance scenarios, which also further highlighted some of the shield holes that they will be rectifying over the coming builds. So finally, on to performance teams. What they felt went well was they felt that they were able to get the frame rate levels that they were aiming for many players, but many other players did mention poor client frame rates, especially during the ship battles in Phase 2 and 3. Now, they know that server performance needs to be better, as this will help to improve things like the response time of AI. For the future, they say the main takeaway is they need a better system for profiling and performance regression, so they have the tools for all the teams to more easily profile and optimize for performance, rather than being bottlenecked or dependent on a small handful of engineers. The engine team have already been looking into this and have made some really good first steps this year. For example, they have a new stress test framework that is easy for code to use and better auto capturing and analysis of performance data. Now, it's a little early for this to have an impact on 3.13, but it should be a big help in the long run. there is also a mandate this year for all the teams to assign more time to optimizations that will help in this effort. And with server meshing on the horizon, along with several other longer term planned optimizations, they potentially have some much more significant gains when these come online. So I think that is pretty much the biggest issue right now. Until much of this core tech is done, the PU will feel problematic, to put it lightly. Of course, all of this work will improve performance and server stability, but it is interesting also to hear that there are other stuff that they can and are doing that will help improve performance, which will hopefully create even bigger improvements once this core tech is also implemented. I'm happy that the teams now assign more time to optimizations, as it will help in the long run and the short term, so that is great to hear. But that is the post-mortem for the XenoThreat event. It's great knowing that they've learned a lot from this event, and that's probably the best takeaway from the XenoThreat event. The amount of testing, tuning, balancing, bug fixing, and best practices all the teams were able to do and take from the event is only going to help with the betterment and the future of the game. Not to mention, I did have a lot of fun taking part, so roll on the next one. With that said though, if you do enjoy my content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I will look to do another ship giveaway once the channel reaches 40,000 subscribers. Also, if you want to talk more about Star Citizen or just hang out and watch me play the game, you are all more than welcome over on twitch.tv/supermacbrothers Ryan. The link is below. Tick that notification bell if you want to be notified when my videos go live, and if you could do the channel a big favor and hit that thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. Again, these videos are possible thanks to my generous patrons and channel members, so thank you to you guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.